Ah, happy Monday, Grand Rising. Lots of fun stuff to talk about. Bought another book called Be What You Wish. I believe it's by Neville Goddard. And I started reading it. Really good stuff. Hi, everybody that's joining. What's up? Grand Rising. Let's start our week with a powerful mindset. Even if you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, even if you woke up feeling like old beliefs, old story. You guys saw my video yesterday about the quote that said, my old story has no power over me. Let's start our Monday with talking about, hi everybody, with talking about how our old story has no power over us. That was so powerful. When I read that the other day, I was like, where was this phrase? What's up from Puerto Rico? Where was this phrase the last year, the last 2 years? Hi, Richard. What's up, Ben? Ben, I'm so proud of you. That's amazing. My old story has no power over me, right? That is such a powerful one. And after I read it, I was like, shit, I really needed that. I really needed to know and to hear my old story has no power over me. Gar, hi. So when we literally just dissect a simple phrase like that, my old story has no power over me, first of all, we have to identify with what our old stories or our old beliefs are. What's up from Vancouver? What are our old stories and our old beliefs that do have power over us? If we can identify those, write them down, right? Write down, what are my old stories? What are my old beliefs? Get really honest with yourself. And once you write those down, what your limiting beliefs are, whenever those things come up, whenever they're telling you that you're not good enough or that things never can never happen like this and this isn't the reality, Oceanside, California, new timelines, jumping to new timelines, my old story has no power over me. I claim that my old story has no power over me. And once I started doing that, like I just felt a sense of relief. I really, really did, because it's like, it's such a powerful statement to use all day long. And when you say those words, my old story has no power over me, you really, really start to feel that. You're like, damn, like this is really powerful to say, because it's just such a simple phrase, but holds so much weight, because we all have an old story. And we all have an old story that feels like it will never die. And when we continue to affirm that that has no power over us, it starts to sink in. Like, shit, yeah, it doesn't. It's the old story. It's the old version of myself. I was listening to a video today, just this morning, and she was talking about when you do recreate your mind or your belief system, and you have these new beliefs that you're integrating into your reality and you're saying them over and over again. Maybe you're doing your visualizations, whatever that new story is. Once the new story starts to show up in the 3D reality, whatever it is that you want, are you still going to answer or respond from the old version of yourself? Because if we're recreating our reality, and we're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, I'm totally shifting my reality, and, you know, my mindset is really helping with this. And now that I'm changing my mindset, different things are starting to show up. Are you still going to respond as the old version of yourself when the new versions of your life are starting to show up? I can't answer that. Only you can, but I can ask the question. I can plant that seed. So from the book, Be What You Wish, the first sentence, you can change your future by changing your thinking. So if anyone would like to answer, how many people feel you can change your future by changing your thinking? And this is, you know, I mean, we've been hearing this stuff, oh, think positive and positive things will happen. Like, this is all manifestation. This is all law of attraction, laws of the universe, drawing things to you that you want, right? You can change your future Neville Goddard. I'm pretty sure it's Neville's book. You can change your future by changing your thinking. I believe this, but I'm really struggling. See, that's where I've been, and there are certain things that I believe are so easy to manifest, and there's other things that I put on a pedestal, and I'm like, that's more difficult. It isn't. It's just my programming, and I'm still working on recreating my thoughts. I'm still working on rewiring my mind. I haven't mastered this yet. Certain things are very easy for me to manifest, and there's other things that it's just like, ugh, because it's that old story that's coming back. So now that I'm using that phrase for the last couple of days, my old story has no power over me, I actually feel that it doesn't anymore. So if I can use that affirmation or use that statement to help me step further into my power, I'm going to use it all the time. I'm not going to forget about it. I'm going to put reminders in my phone to remind me my old story has no power over me. When I start to see things from a more negative perspective, my old story has no power over me. I fell back into old program behavior yesterday. It scared me, feel paralyzed, so I'm hoping to shift. I think also there are some really weird things happening energetically right now. A lot of people that I talk to are like, I've been crying uncontrollably. I'm super emotional. I feel like someone just said, I keep going back to my old stories. I think there is a lot of things that are happening energetically that we're not completely, the light is getting on my nerves, that we're not completely aware of or privy to. And all these emotions are coming up and all these things are happening, and it's a cleanse. So if old stories are coming up, if you're really frustrated, just allow them things to pass. Know that they're coming up for a reason. Yes, this week was really crazy. I've talked to a lot of people, and many are saying the same things, including myself. I've not been grounded this entire week and a half. And I'm like, why? What is happening? And then after I spoke to other people, many were saying the same thing. So just keep that in mind when you're starting to feel something in an overwhelming way. What is it trying to tell you, show you, or help, or need to work through? Yeah, the full moon, it was like a super moon or a pink moon. So you can change your future by changing your thinking. By our imagination, by our affirmations, we can change our world. We can change our future. If we strive passionately to embody a new and higher concept of ourselves, then all things will be at our service. It's just that constant reminder that we need to remind ourselves of, my old story has no power over me. And then affirm the things that you do want. What are the things that you do want? Get your head out of your ass. I mean, that's a good one. Many of us have our heads up our asses. To change the present state, we must rise to a higher level of consciousness. This rise is accomplished by affirming that we are already that which we want to be, by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. How many people on here do their visualizations or their meditations and meditate about the things that you actually believe that are happening right now? Even though they're not in your 3D reality, they're in your imagination. That's getting into the state of the wish fulfilled. How many people practice that? Because I've been doing it morning and night, like before I fall asleep and when I first wake up, because that's called the state akin to sleep, which is the most powerful time to do your visualizations, to impress your subconscious mind, right? The drama of life is a psychological one, which we bring to pass by our attitudes rather than by our acts. There is no escape from our present predicament except by a radical psychological transformation. So I'm going to read that again. There is no escape from our present predicament except by a radical psychological transformation. Let's use this in the example of COVID. There's no escape from our present predicament except by radical psychological transformation. The only way to allow this whole thing to unfold in our three-dimensional reality is to create a radical psychological transformation. So we were radically psychologically transformed via fear, through propaganda, through cell phones, through social media, all those things. This whole thing could have never existed if there was not a psychological transformation that was radical. So in order to change your current reality, we have to have a radical psychological transformation, because if you continue to think the same thoughts and think that you're going to change your three-dimensional reality by doing the same thing that you've been doing, that doesn't make any sense. You know the saying, in order to have something different, you have to do things you've never done, or something like that. That's what I need, a radical psychological transformation. So that, I'll get back to the book in a second, but I found a person, instead of a psychologist, she is a soulcologist. So I'm going to be seeing her this week. And that's super exciting, because I'm always trying to do things that will help me get into a different state of mind, right? That will help me to shift from going back to the old story, or when I'm triggered, falling back into the old story, blaming myself for things, putting a lot of pressure on myself, taking all of the blame for something that I'm not to blame for, because my old story will tell me these things, that I go back, or I revert back to it. Narcissists are coming at me lately, and I'm working on dealing with them from my new reality, still ruminating about how I set boundaries. Well, it just depends on your old story. If you're coming from your old story, you're going to be in that same space with a narcissist. But when you're coming from your new space, how would the new version of you that doesn't tolerate this, what boundaries would you set? Because as soon as you start to set those boundaries, again, people will either shift with your new reality, or people will shift out of your life. And either way, we have to allow those things. As long as we are making shifts, shifts are going to happen all around us. And if you stay in that state, in that new door that you walked in, that is a new state of mind. If you stay in that state, your world around you has no choice but to change. It cannot stay the same unless you revert back to your old beliefs. But if you're literally, one state of mind is here, and this is where all the bad things happen, and you're like, you know what? I am changing my state of mind, so I'm going to walk into this room, open this door, and this is where I'm going to live now. The same surroundings cannot apply from an old state to a new state. From one old room, if you're in one room, you close the door and you walk out, there's other things in the other room. You're not going to see the same things in the old room that you see in the new room. Hurts if it's your son. But Sherry, we all create our reality. So if your son is showing up in a way that is hurtful to you, or not in the way that you'd like, you have to start to see him differently. And he's going to show up differently. And if you start to see yourself differently and act differently as a more powerful person that has the boundaries, he has to shift. It's just the way reality works. Everything depends on our attitude towards ourselves. Literally, Sherry, I just said that. Everything depends on our attitude towards ourselves. So if we believe that we're not loved, we're never chosen, everything depends on our attitude towards ourselves. So if we believe that our son treats us badly, or our child treats us poorly, everything depends on our attitude towards ourselves. I know many people that allow their kids to walk all over them. And they just won't discipline their kids because they don't want to be the bad guy or this or that, but they have no respect for themselves. Really want things to change, but don't know how to set boundaries. Setting boundaries can be difficult. I had to set boundaries with my mother because she wanted to control every single thing that I did. I'm a grown-ass adult, and she still tries to do it. And I have to immediately shut it down. So what does she do? She steps back. She doesn't come forward because she knows I'm not going to allow it. Whereas before, she'd be like, oh, you're not doing that. And I'd be like, yeah, you're right. I can't do that, or I shouldn't do that. Whereas now, Some people just can't let go of control. She's one of them. She tries to say something to me that is controlling, and I stop her dead in her tracks. And what does she do? She pulls back. She knows. She understands. My boundaries are clear. Whereas before, it would be like, I would let her push me around because I'm just like, oh, she's probably right. But now I know exactly the things that I want. So you can't be pushed around when you know exactly what you want or exactly what you deserve. That which we will not affirm as true of ourselves will not develop in our lives. So if we don't affirm things that we believe are true, they're not going to develop in our lives, even though you might want it so badly. But if your inner core belief is that you don't deserve it, you shouldn't have it, it's too impossible, it's too hard, you can never do that, you can't afford it, all these things. If we don't affirm that this is our truth, it cannot develop in our lives. I didn't make this shit up. I don't know what happens sometimes with some of these comments, guys. Like, come on, get your shit together. Let's go. A meek man is a self-disciplined man. He is so disciplined, he only sees the finest. He only thinks the best. I'm sure that's a challenge for every single one of us in here. You guys laugh, but it's the truth. Can we? Okay. We did a challenge, the no complaining challenge for 7 days. Let's do a challenge of only thinking the finest and thinking the best. That is way more challenging than no complaining. Can we do a challenge, and you can say yes or no, that we only think the finest and only think the best? That's some shit right there. So I'm going to take the challenge for myself. Only think the finest, only think the best. And if something negative comes up, my old story has no power over me. My old story has no power over me. I'm in. Okay, so we got some people. We got some people. So you're saying gratitude challenge, but if you're only thinking the finest and only thinking the best, then that's coming from a grateful place or a place of gratitude. Like, wow, this is amazing. My life is great. No more challenges. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard, but it's supposed to be hard. Name of book is called Be What You Wish by Neville Goddard, I think. He is the one who fulfills the suggestion, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things. We rise to a higher level of consciousness, not because we've curbed our passions. I'll give it a whirl. Good. Not because we have curbed our passions, but we have cultivated our virtues. In truth, a meek man is a man in complete control of his moods. And his moods are the highest, for he knows he must keep a high mood if he would walk with the highest. Guys, come on. So a meek man is in complete control of his moods. How many people on here can say that you are in complete control of your moods? Because I know that I could say I'm not. And I'm working on that. Jim, I'm working on that, right? So when I've been using that phrase, my old story has no power over me, it's been helping me shift. Because it's like, you're not going to get in a bad mood because of this. You're not going to allow your outside reality to dictate your inner world. You know why? Because I created my reality. Whatever my reality is right now, I created it based on my thinking. So if any one person that is on here right now can think of their current circumstances that they may not like and go back and think what could have created those. What thoughts were you having that could have created the story that is now your reality? Because I know. I know exactly what I was thinking to create the reality that I have now. So now I'm working on My old story has no power over me. And I'm fighting with myself every day. My old story has no power over me. But I know that the reality that I have now is something that I created because of the things that I'm thinking. So when you see something that is not the reality that you want, think of the thoughts that brought you to that reality. What is it? Benny says, just accept the mood and let it flow away. I agree with that. But there's sometimes you get locked into a certain mood or a certain, this light's getting on my nerves, a certain mood that you can't get out of and that you're locked into. How do you change it? How do you shift? We are in control of our moods, even though it's sometimes very hard to get out of. And sometimes forgiveness is key. Even forgiveness of self is key. I was reading about the Ho'oponopono, looking in the mirror at yourself and forgiving yourself, saying out loud, I love you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, thank you, or I maybe mix those up, the Ho'oponopono saying. But saying these things to yourself in the mirror, like how many times in your life have you looked in the mirror and spoken to yourself or told yourself, I love you? It's difficult. It's foreign. It's unfamiliar. And I'm sure there's people on here that have done it. And I'm sure there's people on here that have not. This weekend was challenging. I'm okay when I'm alone, but too many family activities this weekend. So a lot of people are overstimulated by being around different energies. Many people are empaths and they don't know it. And when you are an empath, you do need your alone time. I was at dinner last night with my family and I was sitting there and all of a sudden, like out of my one ear, I just heard so much more chatter than this ear. And it just was like really loud and weird, and it like shook me, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And it's like, a lot of us are going through a lot of different changes. Spiritual changes, energetic changes, mental changes, emotional changes, and I feel that I'm just becoming more in tune with other frequencies and things, and when I have those type of weird experiences, it's just a message or confirmation to me that I'm moving in the right direction, and that I am constantly expanding my spirituality and the way that I'm using and utilizing it, and just becoming more aware of all the people around me. And it's very important for people that are empaths to shield themselves when they do go into places with a lot of people, because you take on those energies. When you take on those energies and you don't know where they're coming from, then you could also start manifesting from those weird places if you feel low or if you feel overstimulated or things like that. Okay, you said, I want to forgive, but what is stopping you from forgiving? Seriously, had to sage myself after being around certain people. Listen, I totally get it. How do you shield yourself? So I don't remember, one of my energy people that I worked with a long time ago, I'm trying to think of who it was, said that you say to yourself, I am protected by a shield of white and gold light, and it surrounds me. Any energy that is not mine, please send it back to its initial sender, and like send it with love or whatever. And that has helped a lot to put an energetic shield around yourself for people that are really sensitive to energies. Sometimes I forget it and I go into places, I'm like, why do I feel certain things? Like if I just look around the room and see certain people, I automatically feel their energy and the way that they think and their sadness or whatever. And it's overwhelming sometimes, and I know that a lot of people feel like that too, or don't recognize that they feel like that. But let's move on from there. White Angelica essential oil helps too. Thank you, Emily, for that. Okay. How many times have we heard someone say, oh my God, it's only his imagination? Only his imagination. Man's imagination is the man himself. That's pretty powerful. Man's imagination is the man himself. No man has too little imagination, but few men have disciplined their imagination. That's the job of a lifetime. I don't care what anybody says. There's no job harder than disciplining your own imagination. I don't care what anybody says. Imagination is itself indestructible. Therein lies the horror of its misuse. Which again, when you go back to the COVID thing, when you go back to any of these scare tactics, the horror of its misuse, the horror of misusing the imagination, the human imagination, that is the most powerful tool out there. It is stronger than any bullet. It is stronger than any nuclear bomb or anything of any kind of destruction. The horror of the misuse of the human mind. And the human mind is used against us. Our own human mind is used against us as a weapon every single day. That's why I have done unfollowing of pages. Obviously, like not watching the news, TV, or anything like that. I like to keep myself updated and aware of things, but things that are factual, not propaganda. So I have steered away from that because our own minds are being used against us as warfare. And people don't understand that. And I understand it very clearly now. Daily we pass some stranger on the street and observe him muttering to himself, carrying on an imaginary argument with one not present. He is arguing with fear or with hatred, not realizing that he is setting in motion by his imagination an unpleasant event which he will presently encounter. How many times do you have these inner conversations with yourself that are very negative, that are not conducive to the reality that you want to create? And you talk to yourself. We have conversations with ourselves all day, but what are you saying to yourself? Because what you're saying to yourself is setting in motion an unpleasant event which we will presently encounter. You're planting the seed in your mind, and eventually it comes to fruition because that's just the way that the world works. Then when that thing happens, you can literally go back in time and say, I created this. I remember when I was thinking this, and I wouldn't stop thinking this, and I wouldn't stop thinking that something was wrong with my partner. I wouldn't stop thinking that I was going to lose my job. And what happened? Your relationship ended. You lost your job. You can't afford to pay your bills. Because why? You're setting that energy in motion that these things are going to happen. So that when you are in your present reality and you look at your present reality, you could say, I know that I created this by X, Y, and Z. And the moment that we take accountability of our own lives based on our own thinking, then we're going to be able to change it. My old story has no power over me. My old story has no power over me. Determined imagination is the beginning of all successful operation. I still battle with ruminating thoughts about things when I go to sleep at night. Okay, Julie, that's perfect. Thank you for saying that. I started to do that last night. And then I'm like, hey, remember the state akin to sleep, which is right now? That's the most powerful time to manifest. The state akin to sleep. As we're falling asleep, that is the best time to manifest because that is when our subconscious mind is most malleable to change and influence. So if you're spending your time as you're falling asleep, the state akin to sleep, if you're utilizing that time to think about all the things that are going wrong in your life, guess what's happening? You're manifesting more of the things that you don't want. How am I going to pay? How am I going to pay this bill? Why is this person showing up like this? Me too, bedtime is the worst, Emily says. We have to be more aware of where our thoughts are at all times, especially as we're going to sleep or as we're waking up in the morning. You have to figure out a way to utilize that time to think of all the things that you want, because that is when you do your visualizations, is as you're falling asleep. So if your visualizations are thinking about all the things that you don't want to happen, you're literally impressing your subconscious mind with all the things that you don't want to happen, and the universe can only give you those things. You're placing your order with the universe before you fall asleep. And if you're placing the order of, I can't wait to tell this person off, or this person's going to leave me, or whatever it is that you think of at night, the universe can only respond by giving you the things that you believe to be true. So if you believe those things to be true, and you are thinking them feelingly, with feeling, right? The universe can only give you that. It can only match that. The imagination alone is the means of fulfilling the intention. The man who at will can call up whatever image he pleases is by virtue of the power of his imagination. The solitary or captive can, by intensity of imagination and feeling, affect, let me read this again, can affect you so that he can act through many men and speak through many voices. We should never be certain that it was not some woman treading in the winepress who began that subtle change in men's minds, or that passion did not begin in the mind of some shepherd boy lighting up his eyes for a moment before it ran upon its way. Okay, let's do this and then we'll conclude. Let us set ourselves here and now a daily exercise of controlling and disciplining our imagination. What finer beginning than to imagine better than the best we know for a friend? There is no coal of character so dead that it will not glow and flame if but slightly turned. Don't blame, only resolve. So we want to not blame ourselves, but resolve. Because if we're in the state of blame for the things that are happening in our reality, we're in a victim mentality. We don't want to come from a victim mentality. Why me? Why is this only happening to me? This bad things always happen to me. See, I knew that this manifestation shit doesn't work. When we come from that place, we're coming from a victim mentality. So we don't want to blame, we only want to resolve. So we don't want to blame ourselves for all the things that are going wrong. We want to resolve. One resolve is my old story has no power over me. I'm really trying to change those visualizations and picture the situation that I'm worried about working out for the positive. So again, when we're doing our visualizations, what scene are you creating in your mind that says to you, this is already done? Whatever the situation you are worrying about, you should be seeing it as if it's already done in the way that you want it to be finished. And when you do your visualizations and meditations, they feel so real because they are real in the imagination. And you have to hold on to them throughout the days. If you have to put reminders on your phone to do your affirmations every single hour, every half hour, whatever it is, to take the time to rewire your mind, do that. And then watch things start to shift. And then sometimes when things start to shift, we fall back on our manifestation journey, or continuing to be the master of the mind instead of the servant. How often are we the master of our mind, and how often are we the servant? Mastering the mind is a lifelong journey. Anybody that says any different is lying. Life, like music, can by a new setting turn all its discords into harmonies. Represent your friend to yourself as already expressing that which he desires to be. Let us know that with whatever attitude we approach another, a similar attitude approaches us. So let's read that again. Let us know that with whatever attitude we approach another with, a similar attitude approaches us. And it's so true. How do we approach other people? And this is even if you're like arguing with somebody or anything, you can't put that energy out without getting it back in return. And we often learn these things the hard way, when we're triggered, when we feel out of control, and we put out energy that we really don't want in return. So it's just having that constant awareness of the things that are triggering us. What are the things that are triggering us, and how are we responding to them? Are we taking our time to give a proper response, or are we allowing the ego to respond for us, to prevent us from being in pain, to help protect us? Sometimes I don't understand some of these quotes. Okay, last thing. By imagination, we are all reaping our destinies, whether they be good, bad, or indifferent. Imagination has full power of objective realization, and every stage of man's progress or regression is made by the exercise of imagination. What seems to be is, to those who it seems to be, and is productive of the most dreadful consequences to those whom it seems to be, even of torments, despair, and eternal death. By imagination and desire, we become what we desire to be. Let us affirm to ourselves that we are what we imagine. If we persist in the assumption that we are what we wish to be, we will become transformed into that which we have imagined ourselves to be. We were born by a natural miracle of love, and for a brief space of time, our needs were all another's care. In that simple truth lies the secret of life. Except by love, we cannot truly live at all. So if your mind is not living in love, what does that mean? If our thoughts are not coming from a space of love to create the reality that we wish to create, and our thoughts are coming from a space of fear, hatred, doubt. Thank you, Carm. Except by love, we cannot truly live at all. So we're running away from our feelings. If we are scared of our reality, if we are putting fear out into the reality for people, if we are not coming except by love, we cannot truly live at all. Someone tell me that that is not the truth. We cannot truly live at all except by love. Do you know any person that's living their best life? Well, okay. We can get into a whole other conversation of narcissism and things like that, of people that are living their best life, but it's not through love, right? So the truth of this is that, or the truth of life to me, is that we come here to be accepted by love, to create love, to find love, allow love. And everything outside of that, I feel, would be ego and destruction in many ways. People write music about love. People write books on love. People create movies about love. People try to attain this love thing, and there are some people that never master it because of their ego. There are some people that allow themselves to remain so closed off that they push anybody away that tries to show them what love might look like. Why? Because even though love is the highest frequency, the ending of love can be the most painful experience that anyone ever has. So many people choose to stay away from love, or to fracture love, or to build walls around themselves to stay away from love, because that's how powerful it is. So except by love, we cannot truly live at all. So if we want to create the most amazing life that we possibly can, our manifestations have to be thought of in love. I'm going to save this live, yes. I always save my Manifesting Mondays. So if you're trying to, the things that we want to create in our reality are usually something that we want to create because of a love feeling. Even your home, if you're like, oh, I have the most amazing home, you're trying to manifest the most beautiful home. Why do you want to have the most amazing home? Because it feels like love. Home is love. Love is a home, right? Why do we want to have certain things? Especially when it comes to relationships, jobs, anything. Because we want to what? I learned this in one of my acting classes. What is the goal? What is the goal in every single scene? I'm like, I don't know. And it's to be loved. So no matter what the scene was that we were doing, you know, any scene that we were practicing or that we were rehearsing, and they were all different. There's a million different scenarios of a scene that could be written. But what is the goal of every human being? And that is what? To be loved. So in order to manifest the greatest things that we want, we have to what? Believe that we are deserving of what? Being loved. Perfect job. Believe that I'm deserving that I am loved. Perfect relationship. Believing that I am deserving of love. Having an amazing life. Being grateful for the things around you. Yeah, I'm grateful to have this experience because I love myself. And so through manifestation, all of our desires stem from wanting love, lacking love. So when we're manifesting our reality that's not ideal, there's a belief, a deeper belief, a core belief that believes that I am not worthy of this. I don't have the love to experience this. I'll just read a couple comments and then we will conclude for today. How do you push through sadness and anger of a breakup? Okay. There's always a lot of blame, shame, and really strong emotions that obviously come with a breakup. Pushing through a breakup, depending on which way that you want this to go. One thing that has always helped me is finding an energy facilitator that can help you move some of those really heavy, dense energies. That is grief, that is the sadness, that is the anger. Because when we move those energies, we free up space within our bodies to allow other things to come in and to allow us to think from a more centered place. So that's one of the really most amazing tools I've ever come across, is doing energy work, because it just helps to shift things. It helps to move out something that's so heavy that's weighing on your chest. Richard says, laugh. Hey, I want to come to one of the meets, but no one responded. What meets are we talking about? So let's conclude with that today and do our challenge. What did I say our challenge was? To stay in a positive state of mind, right? Or to be, let me go back to it. I should write this down. I should write shit down. Wait. Oh, okay. We're only thinking the best things. There we go. Our challenge is to only think the best things. And when we're not thinking the best things, what are we going to say? My old story has no power over me. Right? So that is our challenge. Thank you, Emily. Only think the finest. Leo was with his Aunt Jen. Only think the finest. So I hope that this was helpful. I will post it. And I will chat with you guys later. I hope that you have an amazing day. I'm going to do some scripting before I have a meeting. And yes, let's do it. So I'll post about it. So we have 7 days of only thinking the finest and only thinking the best. I wish everybody luck with that. Adios.